we've got Michael Keigwin joining us. He's the founding trustee and project lead for the Uganda Conservation Federation, has worked in Uganda since 1997. His love for Uganda stems from his uncle being a warden in Murchison Falls National Park in the 60s. Prior to being with the Ugandan Conservation Foundation, he developed and ran the Elephants, Core and People project in Southern Queen Elizabeth National Park. And in 2016, he was awarded an MBE for services to conservation. So let's bring Michael in with us now. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hi there, trying to manage through a power cut with a dead phone battery. I'm sat in my car in the garage. I do apologize.
No, not at all. Not at all. We've done events from all over the place, and if the car is where the power is, then that's where it's got to be. So hopefully we'll get lucky and we'll be able to have a little conversation today. But if not, we'll compensate and we'll pivot and figure out what to do. So it's great to see you, Michael, joining us today. Happy World Ranger Day. And yeah, thanks for taking a little bit of time to be with us today.
I'm delighted to join you all. It's such a fantastic cause for people all over Africa, Asia, the world, in fact. So thank you for putting all this on.
All right. So Michael, I kind of gave you a brief introduction to start, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what kind of led you into this career in conservation?
I wouldn't say it was by any design. Very simply, I was taking a break to go and decide whether to continue with the Royal Marines or my family regiment, which is the Irish Guards in the UK. And I came out to Uganda just to take a break and joined a project. And whilst I was out there, I saw considerable problems, which I was amazed that were not being sorted out by some of the big NGOs that I thought would have been doing this sort of thing. And there was such a big gap, and some of these things were really quite easy to solve. I started to solve a few of them and got more and more entrenched within it, and built up some very, very close relationships with the Ugandan Wildlife Authority, who are doing a fabulous job every day out on the front line, and found that behind the scenes, if I could unblock limitations to them, they were able to achieve a huge amount. So what we do now is very simply enabling them to be even more successful than they can be, bearing in mind for 40, 50 years, they've really not been resourced or supported in the way they should have been and could have been. And because of that, the conservation of the country has really not reached the levels it should be at. And now the Ugandan Wildlife Authority is really succeeding in so many different ways. And it's because funds are beginning to reach the right places and they're able to achieve what they can achieve.
That's great to hear, Michael. And, sometimes it does take, a different perspective and, maybe trying things in a different way to make things happen. So it sounds like it's been a great kind of partnership, kind of both ways. And I imagine that the work that you're doing doesn't feel like work a lot of the time. It's something you're passionate about. So that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit next is, I'm sure it is challenging. You and I kind of had a brief chat the other day in our test call about, finding funding and the difficulties that come with that sometimes. So I wonder, what is it that keeps you going in the face of challenges?
What keeps me going, I think, is pretty much a simple answer. The guys and the girls on the front line that I work with, the efforts they put in without the resources that they should have, the success they've achieved without any of those resources, the integrity and honor that those guys and girls have worked with, many of whom I've now known for over 20 plus years, who are now very senior in the Ugandan Wildlife Authority. It comes down to the trust and the relationship I have with them, and that drives me. If I thought for a moment that they couldn't be bothered, they weren't working hard, they were stealing or whatever, I simply wouldn't do it. At the same time, without the other, what I would say, NGOs really stepping up, I'm kind of horrified that I should have to do this. And until such a time as I see that actually happening and them behaving in the way that is appropriate to really make sure success reaches the ground, then I don't see I have a choice. So one of it's about the relationships, about the how impressed I am with the guys and the girls on the front line, and the efforts they put in. And then the other side is how horrified I am by a lot of the conservation sector and development sector, which is a horrible thing to say, I know, and I apologize for that, but it is true.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think there can be corruption everywhere, and things don't always run the way that they should. So not speaking out and not talking about it isn't going to help it. So absolutely, it's definitely something that should be spoken about and addressed. Thinking about the Rangers and the relationships you've developed over the years, I'd love to have you share a little bit about the passion that you see within the Rangers, and what you hear from them that keeps them going. What drives them to get up, without the resources they need? What's driving them to get out every day and keep doing the important work that they're doing?
Well, I think it's a number of things. If you go back even a few years, many of the areas they're working in are huge, and they don't have what they need where they need them, i.e., are they accommodated well? Do they have clean water? Do they even have communications or basic transport? Is the infrastructure in place? Are the Rangers even trained? It's what I call the foundations of park management. You have to have those things in, but they're just not here. They've never been put in, not for 50, 60 years. So we're basically doing the foundations, installation of that. But right now we're seeing the Rangers are paid in full. The governments of Uganda has made sure they're protected through this crisis. And we've been working very hard to make sure the ranger posts, keep them, well built. They're dry, of course. They've got light bulbs. They've got a little bit of power. And so the respect and the welfare of the rangers is paramount. But you only have to go back a few years, and even in other parks within Uganda, to go on a patrol, you would have to walk 40 kilometers. You would then start your patrol, and whatever happened on that patrol, whether you arrested poachers or you found traps, you'd have to walk back with them. And then you would have to go through the process of prosecuting. But you can imagine walking 40, 50 kilometers before you've done your patrol, and then having to walk 40, 50 kilometers after your patrol without even doing, counting for the patrol. So the energy and the strength of will was always something I was mightily impressed by. And it does always come down to leadership. And I strongly believe now that there are some very good people within the Ugandan Wildlife Authority leadership who are propelling the potential forwards. So, yeah, I mean, the Rangers, you never get 100% good ones, but I'm certainly seeing such an improvement. It's magnificent. But we are now in unbelievably difficult times when, how do we feed the Rangers? How do we put fuel in the cars? How do we maintain the vehicles and the boats? What about the medical bills? Anti-malarials, even the basics. All of these things are causing massive strains in the parks at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Funding is never something that's that comes easily, especially in a time like now with the pandemic. It's great news to hear that the government has stepped up and is continuing to help fund the Rangers. But another thing you and I talked about in that test call the other day was something called the Wildlife Ranger Challenge. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about that event, which is coming up in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it's been put together by a group of organizations, of which I've got a long-term relationship with Trust. And there are various others in there, Natural State and various ranger groups who've done a wonderful job. And they put together this campaign last year where over 100 teams of rangers from across Africa, groups of 4 basically, went through a series of events, be it press-ups, sit-ups, and a quiz, culminating in a 21-kilometer run, a half marathon, wearing full kit and 22 kilograms of weight on your back, and for the lady rangers, 15 kilograms on their back, but a significant race and challenge for everyone. And it's coming up again on the 18th of September. And I reckon there'll be around probably 200 protected areas across Africa that will be engaged. And in Uganda, we've got Murchison Falls, Queen Elizabeth's, Kadepo Valley National Parks, and then the Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary all participating. And it does two things. One, it engages the world and raises funds, but it also gives the rangers, through an incredibly difficult time, something to garner their competitiveness, their interest in, and build their morale around, and give their leadership something, a little bit of something in the parks to push them on. And it's a fun event. I ran it last year. I have to admit it was quite hard work for someone long in the tooth, but it was good. And throughout the year, the funds raised through the Wildlife Ranger Challenge has been keeping Queen Elizabeth and Murchison Falls with food for their rangers, as well as fuel in the patrol vehicles. So anti-poaching, problem animal control, the veterinary drugs that the Ugandan wildlife has been contributed by through the fund. We've refurbished all the patrol boats, serviced all the engines for the patrol boats. There's an awful lot of stuff that's happened because of this fund. And it's not the only fund. There's projects.
All right. I do have that link up there for the Wildlife Ranger Challenge if anybody does want to check it out. It is going to be a great event, and I think it's great to have kind of those fun moments for the Rangers and give them a chance to have some fun together, to interact, to compete against each other. And I could tell you for a fact I would not do very well in that marathon. So hats off to the Rangers and the physical skill it takes to do the work that they are doing. Michael, looks like it may have froze. Can you still hear me? All right. Well, we may have run out our luck. I know with the power outage that his battery was really low. So we'll give it a little moment here and see if the connection comes back. I do want to share another link here. Oh, there, he ducked out. So we'll see if he comes back shortly. So this is a direct link to one of those parks in Uganda, Murchison Falls National Park. So you can visit this Just Giving page if you do want to help out the park, help ensure the rangers are being fed, getting equipment, servicing equipment that needs to be done. Yeah, you can do that directly to Murchison Falls National Park. Of course, there's other parks in Uganda, but this is an example of one of those parks.